Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. David coming at you. Just thought I'd pop on and kind of share some time with you since I had a Friday free till the wife comes home for date night. And it's been a while since I've been able to hang out with you guys on a pretty extended basis. So anyway, let's see here. Oh, you like the glasses? These are my computer shades. You see here. Just want to make sure I can get to the chat window, since the only way I can see your chats. When is my next hypnosis class? We've got regression certification coming up in November, I believe it is. You need to have our identity by design class to get into that one though. So I would recommend, if you want to do the really advanced heavy duty stuff, you get into identity by design, or you get into the self-mastery supercharger, which is coming up in January. Hey, Cynthia. And there's Steve and Elmwood and Connor and Brian and Antron and Steve again. Let's see here. I just want to make sure I don't miss anyone who's kind of joining us. There's Janelle. Let me see here. There's Liam. Hey, Liam, I got your message, by the way. Well done. Keep it going. If you don't like it, change it. Thank you, Shapressa. And DRM. And there's Essa. Is it Essie or Sleepy? Okay, let me show. All right. So you got me for a little while. I'm kind of hanging out. I was going to jones it for some socialization. This is as close as I'm going to get right now. So till the wife comes home. So what do you got for me? What do you want to know? Let me see if I can make this a little bigger here. If I can see it easier. Here we go. Okay, Suppressa says, I'm new to your work. Do you have classes on manifestation? Yes, we have an actual whole training funnel on hermetics and advanced law of attraction and manifestation work. It starts, well, again, to get into that class, you need to have our killer influence or identity by design programs that would qualify you for vibrational influence or hidden, and of course, hidden laws of attraction, which is kind of a more obvious way in. We recommend that you have identity by design for that class, but it's not actually 100% a prereq. So optimally, you want to start off with identity by design and or killer influence, then jump into vibrational influence or hidden laws of attraction. We just decided that I think it's March, we're going to be doing a 7-day energy and vibrational influence training, including Reiki, pranic work, things of that nature, out in Costa Rica. So for those of you who are looking for an excuse to travel, where it's a little bit more COVID friendly, I guess is a good word to say it. That would be a great time for a full immersion into the things that we do. We have full trainings on advanced manifestation, mind powers, and things of that nature. So that hopefully that answers your question. We're going to be doing we have 2 soulmates classes coming up, but they're by invitation only. So if you weren't on one of our webinars that we did, those are off limits for right now. We may be doing a live one come 2022, but right now we're just doing it as a virtual event. Let's see, Ben CH, just want to say, after a long time not using these techniques, I tried spinning technique on my wife and she has had no headaches for a week. She usually has chronic headaches. Bravo, my friend. Well done. Keep it up. Keep it up. Lionel Brown says, hello, sir. Liam says, sweet. Lakshay. What does Lakshay say? Hold on a second. Jumped on me. Hello, David. Hello back. Mike Kiesler. David, I'm glad I caught you something. Actually, oh, well, the universe lines up, right? Janelle says, fascinated by the books on your shelves, reading recommendations. Well, Janelle, I have a massive required reading list for all of my platinum and my Mondo and platinum and above students. So depending on what you ask me about will depend on what books I recommend, but I have lots of recommendations. Antron Petty says, I want to do it all. Life coaching, hypnotherapy, NLP, where should I start? For you, I'd start with identity by design. For sure. If that's something you want to do, then nothing really lays the foundation for any of the things you mentioned than better than identity by design. I have not seen any course that produces high quality, high level practitioners as rapidly and as consistently as the identity by design system. Okay. Shapressa says, I will be there in March. Let's see here. Cynthia says Killer Influence is in April, correct? Let me look at my, let me look at the website really quick. How many of you guys knew that we had a brand new website, davidsnydernlp.com? We haven't done a great job of promoting the new website, so hold on a second. I typed the wrong name. www. Oop. You can barely see my screen. I'm kind of far away. David. There we go. If you go to davidsnydernlp.com/events, our next killer, come on. I think our next Killer Influence is in March. In fact, I'm almost positive it is. This view doesn't show me anything beyond 2022, but yeah, I'm 90% sure we have a Killer Influence in March. Let me go back to my, pardon me. Oh, there's Seth. Costa Rica's in May. That's right. My bad. With all my martial arts training, could I take Steven Seagal? No idea. No idea. I'm sure Steven would say yes. He could take me, and I as a martial artist, I should say I should take him. But let's be honest, who really knows? Antoine Petty, thank you, sir. Hypnocash, God, badly, but I have no clue where to start. Everything just goes blank. Help, please. Well, if everything goes blank, here's the secret hack. Pretend you know exactly where everything is and spin it as if you absolutely didn't know, and just keep doing it. And I think you'll be surprised at how rapidly your system just takes over and resolves those things. By the way, when you spin, regardless of how you're going about it, don't be surprised if you have all kinds of weird physiological responses. Spinning affects everyone a little bit differently, but the one thing we do see pretty consistently is that there's always a processing period. Sometimes it's a few seconds, sometimes it's a couple minutes, but whatever your body does during that processing period, just allow it to happen. It's what your body needs to do to clear it out, okay? If you're guiding somebody through it and you put your hands on them, hold that space until they visibly relax and you know, then they signal that you're done. If you're doing it on yourself, hold your own body until the system kind of reboots and you kind of get an idea that, okay, that's done, okay? These are just some little tidbits that you can kind of do on your own that can significantly help your spinning. But at the end of the day, the part of you that controls all of these different processes in your body is the exact same part of you that knows how to play pretend. So by pretending, you can access that same level of your neurology and all the things that your imagination connects to, okay? I didn't design the system, but I did kind of reverse engineer how that kind of works. So play with it. And the more playful and explorational you are, avoid having preconceived notions about how something's supposed to feel. That's your conscious mind interfering. And just accept whatever comes. And I think you'll be pretty amazed at how rapidly shit just starts to clear up. Teresa says no. I don't know what that's about, but Teresa, did not know about the website. Yeah, it's let me put it in the chat for you. It's www.davidsnydernlp.com. And the good news is we just got our Instagram account back. It's David Snyder NLP at Instagram. If you guys could all help me out by kind of spreading the word about the Instagram stuff, it's kind of our little secret social media thing. We're starting to try to do a little bit more, reaching out to more people, putting out more content, things of that nature. So the more you can help us by joining our lists, and, I know a lot of you just kind of follow me on YouTube, and that's great. If you want to get in the loop on more things that we've got going on, we've got a ton of stuff. We have been so busy with creating new content, creating new courses. Many of you may have heard we just did a massive epic training with behavioral influence expert Chase Hughes of the behavior panel. It was a grand slam home run. People are calling it the most powerful training they've ever been to. And Chase himself was so excited. He was bugging me to do another one. So if you like the behavior stuff that you saw Chase and I do, by all means, if you want to learn how to get involved in those things, if you want access to the videos when they come out, because they're editing right now. We videotaped all 4 days of the training. then by all means, make sure you get on our mailing list. Make sure you get on our social media. Obviously, you've been around. You know, my YouTube channel has been around the longest, so I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for? A guy who's not very technical. Anyway, I just got up on all that stuff, but if you want to, we're also on Clubhouse and things of that nature, and I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to divide myself into all these different channels, or if I should just repurpose old content or things like that. Maybe you guys can give me some clues as to what you want to learn more about, what you want to know about, things of that nature. I think of us as a community, as a family. And so, I have my own desires, the things I want to know about for myself. And many times those things are similar to what you guys want. But a lot of times you guys have something that's completely, what I would consider completely out of left field, but you feel is related to the body of work that I do. And if I can shed light on that for you, if I can give you some insights into it, or even open up a whole new line of research, as is often the case, people come to me with questions about stuff, or resources that they've studied. I say, have you heard about this? It sounds an awful lot like something you do. And then I go researching it, and I find out, holy shit, Batman, there's a whole wealth of stuff here that adds more depth and dimension to the things I'm doing. So it's kind of a collaborative effort, So, any backwards and forwards communication, I'm always open to. It's harder to get a hold of me now than it used to be. Steph will tell you, back in the days when we had classes of like 12, and we could all go to lunch together and continue the classes out there. But we still try to keep it intimate. We still try to have make access to me as accessible as possible, if that makes any kind of sense. Let me scroll up here and see what we got. Lando is asking, Jesus is asking, do you do one-on-one sessions? I do, but they're really, really expensive because my training schedule and my production schedule is really, really tight. But if you want access or information about trainings, if you want to train directly with me, you're gonna pay the most. But I do have trained associates that I do refer to, that I have a tremendous amount of confidence in. So if you want, you can give us a call at 858-282-4663. Sorry, 4663. And talk to Stephanie, and she'll point you in the right direction of where if you want to work with me. Again, I'm happy to work with you, but my time is a premium. So I'm trying to be an asshole about it. There's only so much of me to go around, and I think you guys know how that works, right? So Lando on the Fleek says, what's a good breathing technique to release tight neck muscles when I'm really anxious? I'll tell you what I would recommend, Lando, is if you go to my video, Instant Emergency Pain Relief. Hold on a second. Instant Emergency Pain Relief. There's a technique in that video called burst breathing or recovery breathing. It's something I learned when I was studying Systema. And it is probably one of the most powerful recovery processes I have ever learned. I have used it on fear. I have used it on physical pain. I have used it on inflammation. Anything that you can move your consciousness into and breathe from, you can control. And so for neck muscles and neck stiffness especially, I think that would probably give you the biggest bang for your buck. Color breathing would also probably work as well. So take those two techniques, play with it, and let me know how you do. Let's see here. Liam says, I can't even tell you the life change that seems to happening since I got your self-defense supercharger. Cool. Is that the self-defense supercharger or the self-mastery supercharger? I have two supercharger programs. I'm curious which one you got, Liam. David Pico. Hi, David. We manifest our world by our beliefs. And if I believe in health over viruses, will my immune system fight away viruses more efficiently? The answer is yes, it will. Will it cure everything? I can't say that. But the one thing we do know is that the beliefs you embrace deeply dramatically affect what your DNA and therefore the rest of your physiology does. So according to Bruce Lipton's work, the beliefs we hold profoundly impact our DNA over time. And if it impacts our DNA, it has to impact our immune system. So the short answer is yes, with the qualifications that, everything works for somebody, nothing works for everybody. So hopefully that's enough of a disclaimer to keep me out of court. Anyway. If you don't like it, change it, says. Question, how can you energize your body to shift vibrations? What's the fastest method? The fastest method is probably what we call color breathing. You start by using physiological state control, combine that with volitional state control. Access the body feeling, turn it into a color. Ask yourself the magic question, what do I want instead? Imagine what that would be like. Generate a body feeling, turn that into a color, breathe it through your entire body, and within a few seconds, you will start to experience a profound state change in most cases. Lendo on the Fleek says, have I ever had a near-death experience? No. I, for better or worse, I am not one of the few who can say they've had a near-death experience. I know several people who have, but I personally haven't. No. Petros Cordolo, Cordolo? Did I pronounce that right? Is the G silent? Think what I want to know more about. Okay. Janelle, like the new website, very user-friendly, excellent content, nice design. Thank you. Thank you. We worked long and hard on that sucker. The old website is still running. So if you have stuff, if you bought content on that website, you can access it. You should theoretically be able to access it on both sites. But if you can't, shoot us an email and we'll work on getting all of your stuff transferred over to the new site. Let's see here. If you don't like it, change it. It says, I'm assuming you meant healing. Can you clarify the question? Brandon, hey, David, long time no see. Hope you're well. Been very well. Actually, I went through, after I got back from HypnoThoughts, I got hit with the Delta virus. And I spent a couple weeks kicking its ass. And so I've got some really brand spanking new antibodies that that I had to take to Florida just to test out. So, and apparently I'm doing pretty good. So let's see here. Let's see. Petros is asking, 1, social conditioning in the real world. 2, hypnotic keywords used in media. 3, how to be more friends with the reptile. Okay, well, Petros, I'm going to have to ask questions about your questions. First of all, what specifically do you want to know about social conditioning in the real world? 2, what do you mean by hypnotic keywords used in media? Hypnotic keywords for what specifically? And 3, how do you be more friends with the reptile? First of all, the reptile doesn't make friends. The reptile by its own programming is a loner. The difference is that the reptile understands that survival is enhanced by being in groups and being accepted by groups. So it will proceed to integrate itself into social groupings for the pure reason of survival. But at the end of the day, the reptile says, this is my food, that's your food, but your food is also my food, so I'm going to find a way to get your food. Fortunately for us, we don't have just a reptile brain. We have the mammalian brain, which is kind of like the dog brain. Dogs are man's best friend, so it's the part of you that loves you. Think of it that way. And then, of course, you have the neocortex, which is your third layer or your new brain. And it's the part of you that kind of takes all these primal urges, these emotional drives, and sublimates them into socially acceptable behaviors. But below, you peel back all the veneers and all the sublimations and things of that nature, you've got primal drives at work driving the bus. So when you say be more friends with the reptile, I think it might, and again, I'm paraphrasing, I'm guessing what you mean. How do you understand your reptile? How do you be more in harmony with the reptile part of you? And that's, first of all, the key is really understanding it, understanding how it communicates, when it's communicating, and what to do when it does communicate, how to interpret those things. I think those are the things that, when we talk about being friends, the reptile loves you unconditionally. It's everybody else that it tends to view through a very specific set of lenses, right? So anytime you're engaged in something that, from the reptile's perspective, moves the DNA forward or allows the DNA to survive, the reptile is going to be happy. Take that for what it's worth. So Shadow Wolf is asking, once you referred to, hold on a second, where is it? I think it jumped on me here. Shadow Wolf, once you referred to it, so what is Kahuna and why is it so powerful? Okay, so Kahuna means, is a practitioner, a very high level practitioner of the Polynesian art of Huna. Huna is depending on which, there's 2 different main divisions now when we talk about Huna. I studied Huna, my branch of Huna came from Dr. John Latourette through the Huna Society, and was the style that was originally reverse engineered by a guy named Max Freedom Long. There are other lineages of Huna. which are more, I guess you could say they're more organic. A lot of Max Freedom Long's work was a re-engineering or reverse engineering of the Polynesian systems. And what came out of that attempt to reverse engineer the Polynesian systems was a very efficient psycho-spiritual methodology for connecting the three different selves, working with energies, and creating thought forms and things of that nature. And so that's kind of, to me, that has always been the cleanest version of the Huna that I practice, and that's the origins of what I practice. Now, Tad James went a little bit in a different route. He kind of studied with some of the original Kahunas that would talk to him, as far as I know. I don't know much about his lineage. But there's Serge Kahili King is another resource for those kinds of things. But the early Huna that I studied tremendously impacted all of the energy systems that I learned later on. And it made a lot of them make sense, and it made a lot of them workable. So that's kind of, hopefully that kind of clears up the whole Huna thing. I still have a deep respect for the Huna practices today, and I've built on them in my own hermetics and things of that nature. But there's no conflict at all really between the hermetics that I practice and the Huna stuff. Okay. Alexis says, "Hey David." Liam says, "I have both." I'm assuming it's Jesus, not Jesus. I don't think you can put a price to well-being. Anxiety sucks. Absolutely. 100%. Speaking for someone who's had chronic anxiety for most of his life, I completely empathize. Okay, Liam says, "I was talking about self-defense supercharger." So yeah, we sat on that. We shot that actually 3 years ago, and we basically sat on it. We didn't really want to give it out to the general public. For a lot of reasons, but after a while we said, you know what? I don't know if these masters will ever be together again. I don't know if I'll ever teach a class like this again, as much as I would like to. So I think we're doing a disservice to the world by not sharing it. And it's a little bit of a departure from a lot of the material that you're used to seeing from us, but it does show you how the martial dimension has significantly informed a lot of the change work and the magical work and the manifestation work and the therapy work that we do. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it's helping you. There's a lot more where that came from. Believe me, there's a lot more. I think my cool shades back on. I don't know. A lot of people say the shades are cool. What do you guys think? Lache Aurora says, "Could you please share some self-healing techniques?" I can, of course. Nico is asking, "Do you still offer Furman?" Yes, but you have to ask for it. One of the problems that we kept running into when we were trying to run Facebook ads or what have you was they have a really, really strong bias and sensitivity to anything pertaining to sexuality, sensuality, love and romance, dating, etc. And so even though we never actually advertised those products through Facebook, the very fact that we had them available for sale on our website kept getting our ad accounts banned. And so what we literally had to do was we had to take everything that had to do with love, sex, romance, and dating off the website. And especially now, there may be a couple of products still there. I think we may still have like speed attraction or the mating dance or something like that. But really, any of the deeper level studies into sensuality and sexuality, which is a big part of the work that we do, especially in the magical and the hermetics and the qigong side of things, in addition to the dating and sexuality niches, which is where I actually started in terms of bringing information out to the public. It was teaching men and women how to be better lovers to each other. But unfortunately, that niche is it's hard to be an educator in that niche without getting lumped into porn sites and all that other crap. And so, no pun intended, it became increasingly harder and harder and harder to stay in that niche. And so we just said, you know what? Let's just make our life easy. Take all the products that have to do with that topic off the website. They will still be available for sale. If you call Stephanie or email her directly and talk to her and ask her for them, she can sell them to you and give you access to them in the NLP Power website or the David Snyder NLP website. But as a rule, you won't find them unless there's a mistake in the programming somewhere. You won't find them on the website. So once again, if you're interested in that material, You can email Stephanie, who's currently on vacation in Coronado, at nlppower.com, or you can call her at 858-282-4663 and just ask for those products, and she'll run your card over the over the phone or whatever, and you can just log into your website and download the courses for yourself. So I hope that helps. Cynthia Hawley, Jesus, you can work through that. I did with David's teachings. Yes. Winrich von Niprod says, have you heard of Robert L. Peck's girding the lines process for health and superior reflexes? No, Winrich, I have not. Sounds interesting. Ben CH says, tips for concentration. Pretend you can concentrate really, really well. I know that sounds really like bullshit, but the truth is that the moment you start engaging pretend, and you pretend like the thing you're concentrating on is in fact the most fascinating subject, you'll find very, very quickly that your powers of concentration tend to increase. Another thing you can do is, if you have a time in your life when you actually did experience very strong, very powerful concentration, you can access the body feeling, turn it into a color, breathe it through your entire body, and your body will tend to go into that state. There's also a technique called by NLP called drug of choice, which has a very similar effect that works very, very well. So those are some things that you can research and look up. I hope that helps. Seth says Fervor Man is available, but you have to call Stephanie. Yes. All right, Shadow, what does Shadow say here? Hold on a second. I once saw a video of yours describing Aether, being able to spread it to put people in a trance. What is it about, and what does it mean? The old Indian fakers and gurus and things of that nature knew how to work with the elements. They had this ability to gain rapport with one of the 5 primal elements that form the building blocks of our universe and channel it. So they could take an energy like ether or fire or air, and through a process of rapport, gain harmony with it and bring it into their body and fill rooms with it. And one of the byproducts of that is when you fill a room with a certain quality of energy, it has certain effects on the people in it. And so by filling a room with something like the ether or void or akasha, they're all names for the same thing, you could put people in a very profound level of trance. And so it was a lot of how the fakirs and the Indian gurus and things of that nature would produce these mass hypnosis effects, was by filling a room with an energy that automatically just put people into a hyper-suggestible state. Let's see here. If you don't like it, change it. Says, thank you. You're very welcome. Brandon says, you look like bigger than last time I saw you. So good on you. So when you say bigger, I'm not sure if does that mean I look fatter, or I just have a better camera shot? So Len says hypnotic language modifiers. Okay. What does that mean, Len? What do you want to do with it? When people say hypnotic language, all language is inherently hypnotic. It's a question of how you use it that makes it more or less so. And what I mean by that is, does it put people more in the trance you want them to be in, or does it move them away into a different trance? So I need to, better the question, the better the answer. So once again, Len, I'm going to ask you to kind of rethink your question, ask and re-ask it. And if I can give you a satisfactory answer, once I understand your question, then I'm happy to do that. Jessica Fritz, be still, go within, inhale deeply, exhale completely. Your truth, joy, love, and peace you will find. Okay. All right. Mark Barron says, howdy, David. Howdy back. Shambhala Institute. Could you elaborate on Western versus Eastern hypnosis and its connection to yoga, Ayurveda, and Qigong? Well, all hypnosis is hypnosis. However, the Eastern forms actually included a telepathic component in what they did, whereas in Western hypnosis, mesmerism, things of that nature, it was reliant more on suggestion. Although, if you read some of the old manuscripts on mesmerism, telepathic hypnosis was actually quite common. The Russians, when they were researching mental influence, were successfully able to induce hypnosis telepathically in unwilling subjects from quite a distance, but it didn't work on everybody. There were, there was a certain susceptibility level that the subjects had to have. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. But as far as yoga, Ayurveda, Qigong, a lot of the practices in the Eastern side are very, very similar. Very, very similar. Some use chanting to get into that state. Others are more visual in terms of the mechanics that they use. Reinhorn's got a question relative to cycling. What is the most effective moment in timeline of the achieved goals, like fully done or other moment? Okay, I think these is two different questions, Reinhorn's. So the first question pertains to cycling, but your second question seems to be more geared towards NLP and timeline. Is that true or not true? Liam says, I can completely understand why it's life-changing and informative. Cool. He's referring to our self-defense supercharger, which, by the way, is on sale right now. DavidSnyderNLP.com. Okay, let's see. Pedro's Reptile, understanding communication. What does it mean, and when is it communicating? Thanks. And it's a loner. Social conditioning and buzzwords may come on another platform. Okay, so let's go back to understanding the reptile brain. The reptile brain is the brain that controls survival above all else, procreation and survival. So it looks at everything that it encounters through that lens. The reptile brain is the deepest, most powerful part of you. It is the part that has survived literally 6 million years or more. So, and as far as human physiology and neurology is concerned, the older the part, the more power it has. But that particular aspect of your neurology does not speak language as we understand it. It communicates primarily through sensation. Okay? And because everything that you experience subjectively, thinking, feeling, believing, whatever, starts at the reptile brain and then percolates upward. Usually the first thing to answer is the reptile brain or some aspect of your preconscious nervous system. So we have 6 dynamics of what we call an unconscious response. You could think of it as the 6 dynamics of the reptile brain as well. First one is the unconscious mind will always answer you first. It will always answer you honestly. It will always feel like you're making it up. You'll almost always have an urge to edit what just came up. It's never loud. It's almost always like a whim or a notion in the back of your mind, and it's almost never linear. To that, I would add the answers from the reptile brain will almost always be a feeling, a body feeling specifically, followed very, very closely by a knee-jerk emotional response. And the reason for that is, again, because everything originates in the reptile brain, is connected to an emotion and a series of emotional memories, and then it pops up into your awareness as a kill that, run away from it. It's just like this, do that. So when you're paying attention to the reptile brain, understand, pay attention to what your initial gut reaction is, and then step back and ask other questions to figure out if that gut response is actually the appropriate response. More often than not, it is, but we have 2 other brains for a very good reason. It's not always right, and we're not loners. We are a social organism. We're reptiles who learn to connect. And so, but many times, the part of you that wants to survive will predominate. So it's always a good idea to check your information, right? With what is socially acceptable, what is emotionally acceptable, and what behaviors are appropriate. Usually our systems do pretty well in balancing out those behaviors, but every now and then we get caught off guard, right? That's what our state control training is really all about. So I hope that answers your question. The social conditioning and buzzwords, they can come on another platform. Okay, that's fine. Alan M., if the subject is an advanced non-native English speaker, any concern the practitioner shall have? Okay, Alan, I'm not really sure what that question, when you say advanced non-native English speaker, what concerns are we looking for? Can you elaborate on that a little bit so I can help answer that question? Let's see here. I'm trying to go right down the list because it keeps jumping on me. So let me see here. So what would you recommend for improving meditation, visualization, and healing? Posture and breathing. Focusing on body feelings more so than visualizations. That's what I found works absolutely better for me. I find that when we have body feelings that are in harmony with the energy that we want to connect with, the visualizations, first of all, they're easier to maintain, but also they don't become quite as important. So for me, my big epiphany back in the day when I was just chronically listening to all kinds of self-hypnosis tapes and things like that, and doing Reiki on myself, was that if I focused on the body feeling, inevitably I got everything else. So that to me has been the biggest epiphany. And that's why we begin all of our trainings with hooked on a feeling, right? It's a mnemonic and an anchor for all of our students to remember that everything human beings do, positive or negative, is in response to a feeling. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want a whole lot less of. So that would be my biggest tip. Focus on the body feelings, and that will become the bridge to the higher applications that you want to tap into. Love the name. Any tips to get over hesitation in taking a stock trade that fits your analysis, but some fear hesitation stops you from striking at the right level? Well, first of all, recognizing that you have a fear is the first step. Find the body feeling, reach out, touch the picture, put a big black frame around it, white it out, write the lessons across it, shrink it down, move it behind you, and you should be able to proceed forward in a much more emotionally neutral way, because not only will you reprocess that particular energy, you'll also uncover the reason why you had it in the first place and what it was trying to do for you, which is always a good thing. More self-awareness is always better than less. Great question. Sapyrus Theophanos, my friend, says, hey, David, how will I naturally increase my humor skills? Any other tip other than DTI? Take a comedy class. Immerse yourself in stand-up comedy. And again, one of the things that's probably a good idea is everybody has a type of comedy that they're really good at. I spent a lot of time, first of all, I had a lot of natural predispositions because of my genetics and things like that. But I also spent a lot of time really internalizing guys like James Carlin, Robin Williams, Sam Kinison. These were guys who were very, very fast on their, mentally agile, were amazingly good with language, very, very deeply expressive people. Jerry Lewis was another very early role model of mine, and he was very good at physical comedy, just like Robin Williams was very good at physical comedy, which is why when you watch when you come to my trainings and things like that, you'll see I'm just goofing off all the time. It's all, different types of physical, but some people aren't cut out for that. And so there's many different ways to express or develop your comedic skills. There's textbooks, there's courses, and I recommend you immerse yourself in all of them and figure out which styles of comedy really resonate with you. Because chances are, if those are the styles of comedy that really resonate with you, they're probably the ones you're going to be good at. But that was basically what I did for a very long time. Was I tried to hang out with people who were funny in a cute kind of way. That was one of my big epiphanies when I was in high school. I was a little bit of a personality sponge. I thought that there were certain individuals who were very, very popular, not just because they were good looking, which was absolutely part of it, but was also because of the way they were charming. And I set a route to really model that kind of charm, which had this kind of childlike little wit to it. And it took me a long time to develop that, because I had more of the master and commander kind of energy. I was more intimidating as a kid than I was cute. And so it took me a long time to kind of balance that out. And I think it was time well spent, because one of the things that really kind of counts against you in social situations is the intimidation factor. If you're working from a purely what's the word I'm looking for? Like from a purely authoritarian executive position, like do it or else kind of an energy, then that intimidating kind of energy can be effective. But if you're looking for people's goodwill, if you're looking for people to validate you and really kind of support your cause and feel like they're part of something, you need other types of attraction and authority that make people want to be part of it. And I think that kind of disarming, charming, childlike, not take yourself so seriously kind of energy really, really goes a long way. But everybody's different. You know, some people may be very good at that and just have no ability to get people to take them seriously at all. In that case, it may be more important to study command presence or certain kinds of things, things of that nature. But there's a comedy style for everyone, and I think the more you explore that through immersion, through studying the science of stand up and things of that nature, improv, I think the more you'll be able to develop your own personal approach, which I always think is better, right? Um, let's see. Bridget Bishop, what's a good resource for figuring out what the Chinese element we are? Um, Great question. I would start with Face Reading in Chinese Medicine by the late Lillian Bridges, my teacher. She just passed away recently, so I'm going to recommend her book, Ad Infinitum, because it is probably the best book I've seen on understanding Chinese elements and facial characteristics and things of that nature. So I would start there for sure. There are many other books that will cover five element physiognomy, just for lack of a better word. But that could be where I'd start. Let's see here. Hypno Cash God Ren, how do you get along with people better? I just spent a lot of time just talking about that, and I didn't even realize it was a question. But I think one of the most important things to remember is that every human you meet has a story. They are the way they are because of what happened to them and how they've encoded what's happened to them. And I think the more you realize that everybody you meet looking for a sense of validation, everyone you meet inside is a terrified child, desperate to be loved and terrified of being alone. And you start to see them and their behaviors through that lens. I think it's easier to be patient with people. I think it's easier to be willing to meet people where they're at, and to understand maybe why they do what they do. Right? Technically, the best thing to do is just echo their words, and you'll find echo words, 3 magic questions, and you'll find pretty quickly, pretty consistently, people just align with you, and that can make things a lot easier to get what you want in this world, and to make the other people around you like you more and trust you more and feel more comfortable and connected to you. So that would be the theory behind what I say, and as well as the techniques that I would apply. Let's see here. Shadow Wolf. And we talk more in depth about drug of choice, perhaps if not now, in the future. I would recommend you start by Googling it. If you have access to any of our sensuality enhancement videos, very many times in those videos, one of the first techniques I do as we're teaching people how to have orgasms on command and stuff is a drug of choice induction. Right? It's very simple. The technique's been around forever. And it really starts with just noticing when a substance takes place in your body, how does that happen for you? Where do you first feel it? Where does it go next? Where does it go next? Where does it go next? And you just trace it through your body until you come back to the point of origin. And that shows you the circuit that your body processed that particular substance to get those sensations. And then you just follow it you just keep circulating through it like a boat on a river. And most of the time, by the time you've completed the first circuit, you're already in the state. And then each successive repetition makes it deeper. Okay. Let's see here. Martine, David, you are a super great teacher, but are you supervised by another guru? No. I'm a Ronin, so to speak. I have lots of people I go to for knowledge and information, but I have no vows of secrecy connected to me. I've pretty much been on my own since the day I graduated my Reiki class. And so a lot of the things I'm tapping into are things I've discovered, things I've rediscovered. I'm a firm believer in past lives and genetic memory. So the long and short of it is that I don't have a guru who supervises me. I have gurus and teachers that I consult when there's something specific I want to know more about. But as far as what rules bind me, only mine. I think that's kind of what you're saying. But there are a lot of great teachers out there, and each of them has something to offer you. And I continue to seek them out today. I'm not done by any stretch of the imagination. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Angel Hill, do you have tips on pushing past fear, the type that stops you from making your move out of your, start with the gray room. Start with gray room, then move into magic frame, and then into probably the best thing for that is going to be spinning, and then the color breathing. So we call that the transformational triad plus gray room. The other thing I would recommend is that you pick up a book called The Power of Bad. The Power of Bad is a study on the science of how our body and our neurology processes negative events versus positive events. And probably the most important thing that I took from that work is that 1 unit of fear has an emotional charge of 4. 1 unit of courage has an emotional charge of 1. So units being equal, the charges connected to them are dramatically different. So the takeaway from that is to remember that anytime you feel fear, remember that it's actually about 1/4 or 25% of the strength of what it actually appears to be. So if you just divide it by 4 and realize that that's really the level you're dealing with, it's easier to move forward. But remember that even though we automatically as a human being default that 4-to-1 ratio, there is something you can do about it, because the moment you can point to where you feel it, you reach out and touch it. Now you have a mechanism to manage the intensity of those emotions. So magic framing will be the fastest way to just turn down the charge. Color breathing and spinning can completely neutralize it, both at a causal level as well as a physiological level. So those are the things I would use. Gray room is a good generic cleanup, just cleaning, giving yourself an emotional purging, for lack of a better word, of anything that's been accumulating below the threshold of conscious awareness. So those are the things that I think are and read the book, The Power of Bad. I think you'll find that you find a lot more liberation from fear, and your understanding of the phenomena gives you a better ability to deal with it. Let's see here. Shadow Wolf, when it comes to rapport with an element such as ether, I'm able to gain rapport with the everything, which allows me to channel answers when questions are asked. Is it the same mode of being? Yes and no. When we start playing rapport with non-physical or non-interpersonal elements, we have to start focusing in on the qualities we seek to embody. Energetics, as a rule, with the French radiesthesiologists divided energetics or vibration into 2 aspects, a qualitative aspect and a quantitative aspect. So basically what they were saying was, these are the qualities that a particular energy or vibrational frequency has. This is how much of it there is. And so one of the things that we need to do first is we need to tune. In other words, we need to know what are the attributes of the vibration that we seek to embody. We must generate a composite or a sympathetic vibration in ourselves through our feeling states. And that's one of the reasons that we have such a powerful imagination, is because that imagination allows us full access to anything we can conceive of, which allows us to tap into the attributes, which allows us to bridge to the extrapersonal or transpersonal level. So the idea is, once you know what feelings or what attributes you seek to get in contact with, you must become absorbed fully in that phenomena, that energy. And that allows that bridge to be created, that allows you to manifest those qualities in yourself and ultimately to control them and to learn from them. So when we say the everything, that means different things to different people. Just like when I say the void or the akasha means different things to different people. So while the mechanics may be the same, where you need to be more specific is in the attributes and the qualities that you're seeking to become in rapport with or embody. I hope that answers your question. Anudeep, hi from Qatar. Hi, Qatar, how are you? I know it's Anudeep. Neil Calmetto, guitar tuition, the Telford guitar teacher. Hi from the UK once again, David. Hey, Neil, good to see you again, brother. Shambhala Institute, thanks, John Pechkowski. Hey, David, have all of your hypnosis courses, but haven't watched them yet. Ooh. Do any of them teach how to suggest people to do cool and funny things they otherwise wouldn't do, besides switching emotions? Start with Killer Influence. Specifically, I would start with Killer Influence UK, if you have it. It's probably got one of the deepest dives and treatments of covert influence that I've done in the Killer Influence system in a while. That would probably be a good place to start. Identity by Design has a module in it called Fun with Hypnosis, which is all we call imagination games, which is again generating hypnotic phenomena. So I think between those 2, you're probably going to have a pretty good foundation. And then I would look at, again, yeah, that's probably where I would start. And then I would look at maybe looking at Chase Hughes's ellipsis manual, specifically on his confusion statements, things of that nature. If you understand how to weaponize confusion, then you can move people along that behavioral curve pretty quick. But in terms of the things that I teach, identity by design, imagination games, as well as Killer Influence UK would probably be the places to start. Casey N. Landis. Hold on, oops. Hold on a second. Show Casey's question here. I'm so honored to be watching you live. I happened to discover you yesterday and I fucking love you. Well, I love you back, Casey. Thank you so much. Let's see. Liam, when doing remote influence, what is the best way to distract the subject's mind metaphorically, give them a squirrel to chase? If you can set up a like a massive multi-online role-playing game inside your own head and just send them off to interact with some of the NPCs that you create. Those of you who understand this metaphor know exactly what I'm talking about. That would be the fastest way to do it. Casey says, thank you. You're very welcome. Jody Emanuel, virtual NLP therapy. Absolutely. But Jody, a lot of that depends on the practitioner and the subject. You know, what I've discovered, first of all, it's important to preface what I'm about to say. 2020, I was named the #1 NLP trainer of the year. And by the way, they're doing the elections again. So if you could go to globalgurus.org/NLP and vote for me for #1, I would really appreciate that. That would be awesome. I'll see if I can post the link shortly. But it's important to understand that I taught hypnosis and NLP and related disciplines for 10 years for free before I was ever willing to certify another human being. And that's a rather unique a way to come into the field. But the upshot is I saw the results of pretty much every training organization out there, what kind of practitioners it produced, or in many cases failed to produce. And so there is so much diversity and so much lack of uniformity in the skill sets of one NLP practitioner to another. But the one thing I have learned in 20 some years of doing this and teaching this is that the best people who are good at hypnosis tend to make the best NLP practitioners. It does not generalize the other way. So if you are a good hypnotist, you can rock NLP. If you're not a good hypnotist, if your only exposure to hypnosis is from your NLP training, you're coming at the whole discipline in my opinion, from a disadvantage. Now, there are many out there who disagree with me, sometimes vehemently, and that's fine. If your people can do what my people can do in the time we can teach them to do it, cool. But going back to your actual question, would virtual NLP therapy be effective? It can be very effective, but so much depends on the skills of the practitioner and the compliance level of the subject. There's so much variation, so much possibility or potential to go either way that I can't say with any great deal of certainty, will it be effective for anyone? So I just wanted to be clarified on that. If that makes any sense. Casey is asking detailed interfacing talk on spinning. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, Casey? I'm not sure what you mean. John is asking, I've already watched Stealth CPI, but besides the whole pacing and leading concept of truisms, I'm not sure what rapport exactly is. Rapport is a two-way communication, a feeling, an energetic and vibrational connection between your neurology and another person's neurology. It's a physiological effect, right? If you go to, go to the Empathic Superpowers video. And watch that video. And that will give you a visual representation of what we're seeking to accomplish utilizing rapport. There's also a cute little martial arts demonstration in it too. It starts with a metronome entrainment video and then proceeds to show you how that entrainment phenomena crosses over into human experience, because rapport is very much an aspect of the laws of physics. It can't not happen. The question is, can you tell when you have it? And B, what do you do with it once you have it? How do you manage that whole phenomenon? How do you manage that whole process? And that's what we spend a lot of time doing in stealth CPI. So hopefully that helps answer your question about what rapport actually is. Almond Town says, on what Alan asked, there's a question of how effective techniques are if delivered to someone with a different native language. But on that note, is conversation most easier on some languages? As a rule, certain there's a couple of different ways I can answer this question. So first of all, if you are an English speaker and you're dealing with somebody who is a non-native English speaker, there are certain hypnotic language patterns that may or may not translate as well. The second part is that when you are dealing with someone who is a non-native speaker, there is an extra layer of linguistic analysis and translation that happens that can sabotage or neutralize the hypnotic component of what you're doing because of that extra analysis. And I've seen this only really in people who are English as a second language. Now, if you are a native, let's say you're Spanish, for example, and your client is Spanish. Most of your language stuff should work no problem. There will be a couple of linguistic changes that you may need to do that don't fit in with the grammatical structure of like Spanish or French or something like that, but they will still have an effect. So the short answer is it'll work. The more qualified answer is most of it will work. But remember, when you're dealing with people who are going to take the language that you're communicating in, think about it, analyze it, translate it, that extra layer or level of analysis can kind of dampen the hypnotic effects that you're going for. So, and nobody ever taught me that, by the way. That was something that I had to learn through observation for certain things that just didn't translate well to non-native English speakers, not because they couldn't do it. It was because of something extra that they were doing that forced them to parse language much more deeply than a native speaker might. Let's see here. Artur says, how playful do I have to be for the techniques to work proper? Because I've tried so many times, but I keep falling back to the same patterns and no more wealth is being presented in physical form. Chances are, Masih, that you might want to work with somebody else and have them guide you through the processes. Also, when I talk about, and I talk about this in our Hidden Laws of Attraction webinars, there are certain reasons why the law of attraction doesn't work for some people. And a lot of it comes down to an unwillingness to change themselves or to acquire the skill sets necessary to become a vessel for the manifestation they're seeking to achieve. So if you're not having the luck with these techniques that you're expecting, A, what kind of time frame are you placing on it? B, are you becoming the person for whom that thing can happen? 2, C, are you getting in your own way by trying to be a passenger and a driver at the same time? Those are 3 very significant aspects that can delay or neutralize your ability to manifest. And so I would systematically explore that. I would first start by having somebody guide you through these processes and see if that gives you the psychic leverage that you're looking for. Second thing I would look at is, are there things I know I need to do or change about myself before I can have that? And am I putting off or hesitating to do that? Those are usually the biggest. And the last thing is, do I have a preconceived idea of how this is supposed to manifest? That one is probably the single most ninja block to people getting what they want. Is they focus on not just the what they want, but how they want it to happen. And more often than not, the things you manifest are not going to manifest the way you think they will. There may be some similarities. It may become something completely out of left field. So when you let go of the how and focus on the what, things tend to happen at a much more rapid speed. And again, this is kind of paradoxical. The more rapidly you take off the time limits and just focus on becoming a person that can have it, the more rapidly those things tend to manifest because you get out of your own way. So I hope that helps. Tim Sim says, thanks. John Pachkowski says, I have hidden laws of attraction and love image cycling. What I'm having trouble with is getting depth of trance and absorption when doing the process. You don't need it. Just have fun doing it. You should do it for as long as it's fun for you, and then stop and come back and do it when it's fun. If you're not having fun, if you feel like you're trying, like you're putting a lot of effort into this, and it's not fun, you're not embracing the right energy. Casey Landis says, write that across it. I don't know what that means. If you don't like it, says, thank you for guidance. You're very welcome. Alok Sharma, running parallel to head versus ears, diverging out. What can we learn about the personality of a person? Okay, I'm assuming you're talking about the height of the ear versus the eyebrow, which is usually the barometer. The height of the ear generally indicates notoriety in life and when you'll achieve it. So people with higher ears are thought to be people who will become more known in their fields at an earlier age. They'll have more renown at an earlier age. The lower the ear, the later in life those things tend to manifest, if they manifest at all. So that's based on what you're telling me. That's kind of what I'm intuiting you're asking me. How important is it to have past life regression before changes occur? Good question. Really good question. I think that's something that has to be handled on a case-by-case basis. More often than not, when you start clearing your shit, about 1% of my clients, when I'm seeing clients, will spontaneously regress to a past life. So while I think past life stuff can be significant, in most cases that I've worked with, it's less than 1% of the time. It's usually this current life stuff that is the biggest impediment to moving forward. So Liam is asking, have you mentioned something, you've mentioned a few sometimes called luminescence? Do you teach that technology or know where you can learn it? The answer is the technology is called illuminescence, and no, I do not teach it. It is a trademarked and copyrighted system. If you Google Taylor Sinclair, you can find out more about that system. It's not cheap. She's significantly raised her prices in the last 10 years. It's almost prohibitively expensive in many cases. But if you have the resources to do that, it is a worthwhile technology. It's basically plug and play. You just wear the clothes and shit happens, right? So again, if you have the resources, worthwhile. If you don't have the resources, there are many other places that you can go to get other modifiers to the game that are not based on the size of your bank account or your wardrobe. Let's see here. John Pichkowski, also for those who can't afford it, go to Golden Path class right now. What would be a good tip to find or get closer to finding your life purpose as a young person? Here's what I would say. Two things. A, focus on the things that bring you the greatest amount of joy when you do them, that you always seem to find energy to do, that are productive, by the way. One of the things that people tend to overlook is that there should be a joyful spiritual aspect to this. It should be productive. It should result in something. I think it's also, whether a change in somebody's life status, the creation of a product of art or some other device or something productive, right? But also focus on and really explore the things that make you want to run away, the things that you want to do but you're terrified to do. More often than not, getting past those fears and blockages is the biggest shortcut to enlightenment in yourself. The normal reptilian-based human being, it's intuitive to run towards the things you like, run away from the things you're afraid of. To the self-actualizing human being, the one who understands that polarity in any direction is an indicator of things that need to be uncovered and processed. The desire to run away should be just as compelling to move towards as the desire to move towards something that gives you pleasure, right? But again, if you're just reptile-based, you're not using any of your higher centers, then you'll always move away from the things that make you want to run away and move towards the things you like. And that can work. But if you want the shortcut is running into the burning building that everybody else is running out of. So I've been saying that in one form or another for a number of years. And as ironic as it is for me, I still find myself falling prey to wanting to run away from the things that I know need to happen, right? So that would be the biggest, again, aside from getting into a Golden Path workshop and kind of clearing all the debris, profiling your life and figuring out what is the path for you. That would be the shortest amount of information I can give you that would kind of result in that. So Ahmad Sandoval paid extra money to talk to me. Thank you, Ahmad. So, hey, Dr. D, is having the same colors appear when you work with spinning normal? I always get black and white colors. Thank you. It can be. What you're going to find, Ahmad, I'm betting that if you go to your closet, that the majority of the clothes that you have are probably black and white or variations thereof. And about 51% of the people we work with in terms of holographic memory and things of that nature, when they summon up their resolution color, 51% of the time or better, it's the color they're wearing. Because there's a part of you that vibrationally selects these colors from a much higher level. It knows what frequencies you need to bring in to harmonize or neutralize or protect the system at its current state. So is it normal? It can be. Some people have a predisposition to certain frequency ranges over others, right? Some people get plaid, some people get polka dots, some people get swirls like Neapolitans and stuff like that. So I think whatever you get is perfectly okay. I don't think there is a normal, if that makes any kind of sense. You may wake up tomorrow and everything's rainbow colored or polka dotted, right? So hopefully that helps. Shambhala Institute, how do you fight imposter syndrome? By realizing it's not real. By also realizing that everybody, regardless of your level, regardless of their level, Dr. Phil has imposter syndrome by his own admission. I have it from time to time. I sit here and you may hear me say, I'm just a dude in a vest, not a vest today, obviously, but I think imposter syndrome, everybody has it, but I think it's also relative to the people you're surrounded with. When you're surrounded by your peers, or people whose works or information you studied, you always feel like maybe you're just not quite as good as those people, that you don't really belong in that company, where these people are feeling the same thing about you. Whereas when you're around people who have no level of ability that you have, do you still feel like an imposter? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say more often than not, you don't. So I think that imposter syndrome a lot of times can be based on the people you're surrounded with at any given moment. But I think it's equally important to understand that no matter how high a level you go, there will always be a part of you, I think, that remembers when you weren't this person and identifies with who you used to be rather than the person that you are. So how do you fight it? Point to where you feel it, reach out and touch it, frame it, notice what happens. Point to where you feel it, notice the color, take it out, spin it, put it back in, notice what happens. Every single thing that we do to affect change for anything else can be used to affect change on imposter syndrome. But I think, and again, test this, but I think at the end of the day, just the realization that everyone on the planet, and I believe that, has some level of imposter syndrome at some time or another. Just realizing you're just like everybody else. You ever notice that, like, you can be really, really nervous, and then you find out the other people around you are just as nervous and you seem to calm down? I don't know if you ever noticed that phenomenon or not, but I find it's the same way. I was working with Chase Hughes the other day, and he was telling me about his imposter syndrome. I was telling him about my imposter syndrome, right? And here, some of the biggest names in reprogramming the subconscious mind, behavioral influence, we're sitting there talking about how we feel like phonies, right? I'm a guy. He's a guy. Whether you're a guy or girl doesn't matter. Whatever you identify with doesn't matter. Everybody feels like they're acting, like they're putting on airs from time to time. And I think once you accept that, that's just part of being having a human experience. I think it becomes easier to deal with. But if you want something a little extra, point to where you feel it, reach out and touch it, calibrate it, spin it, frame it. And I think you'll find out really, really quickly that you have more control than you think. Right? Feelings aren't something that just happen to you, as much as we like to think that they are. Hold on a second, my computer's doing something weird here. Come on. Okay, that did not go the way I wanted it to go. Hold on a second. All right, my apologies. Heather, very grateful for the chance to learn a bit. Thank you for giving us some of your time and energy to share some knowledge. You're very welcome, Heather. John, which course on love and attraction would you say is most worth it, and how would you answer that separately if you already have the person that you love? Great question. So, A, are you, what kind of relationship are you looking for, right? Are you a pickup artist seeking to just, put notches in your belt, right? Are you looking for a special someone? Either way, a lot of the same techniques apply. The question is, what do you do next? And so I think for people that are already in a relationship, I think unlimited lover and attraction mastery are good. I also think we have a course coming out. Well, we're doing it at the end of the month here on virtually. It's called Soulmate Secrets, and it's my first dive into the spiritual side of love and romance. And we'll be talking about compatibility. We'll be talking about creating long-term bonds, the difference between short-term and long-term bonds, things of that nature. That would probably be a really good course to get once it's available. It is not available yet. It's a 3-day training that we're doing right now. We have 2 scheduled, both are full. And so I would start again with Unlimited Lover. You might want to look at Rapid Attraction Secrets as well, but Attraction Mastery, Unlimited Lover, probably the best to kind of give you. Hopefully that helps. James Kurt, do you have a program to master salesmanship for someone getting into commission sales? Yes, start with either Killer Influence or Stealth CPI, and then add on to that a special program we call Stealth Selling Secrets. Stealth, STEALTH, Selling Secrets. And I think you'll get some really, really powerful strategies for upping your conversion rates by 30, 40, 50%. Not uncommon at all. So hopefully that helps you, James. The Flame says, David, how do you discern between subconscious voices and telepathic messages? Usually they will manifest in a different part of your body or a different part of your head. One of the things that I've learned from my studies in hermetics and understanding how the dimensions kind of intercommunicate is that different vibrational frequencies will manifest as differences in spatial location. So many times when you're getting telepathic messages, you will get them in one part of your brain or body. Whereas when you're getting voices from the subconscious or you're getting communications from the subconscious, it will manifest in a completely different place with a completely different quality. So qualitatively, they'll be different as well. Okay. Liam says the book again is face reading and Chinese medicine. Let me type that out. Let's see what we got here. Bridget says, thanks, I'll look up that book. Does anybody else know what other books are about physiology that David was talking about? I'm sure I wrote the wrong word. It's Physiog, know me. Let's see here. Ahmed, are you colorblind? I think it matters how you interpret the colors. Paris, cheers on the humor skills, David. Allow me to ask you have mentioned in your videos the example of a wood person and a metal person. Your wife sets a table. How would a fire person do it? They just throw the shit on the table. They might not even set the table. They might eat with their hands, right? Fire people are just always moving, and they don't sit still. They're very creative people. They usually resist most types of order. So that's a great question. I never lacked a ton. How would a fire person set a table? I'm not sure they would. Actually, I think a better question is, would they actually clean the table off? Right? They might eat on paper plates for all I know, because then you just throw it away and move on, right? Ahmed Sandoval had Heather, usually black. Okay, that's not for me. Laura, hey Laura. I can't post the video link because YouTube's don't. Okay, so I think Laura was trying to be helpful by posting the video link to some of these things. The books I'm asking about are the Chinese element books. You might also look at, I think there's one called Reading the Body by Wataru Ohashi. It's an older book, but I think it gives some insight into the Chinese elements as well. Petros says, yes, it's an answer to my question. Thank you. We have 3 brains, neocortex, limbic system, and reptile. Then what is the mind or the spirit? The spirit is a non-local phenomenon. You need to think of the physical form like a vessel where the spirit comes for vacation. And the more well kept and the more pleasant the environment, the more the spirit wants to stay. The more inhospitable the environment, the less the spirit wants to be here. So if you think of your brain and all these different brains like a receiver and a loudspeaker for the spirit, you have a pretty good idea of how I look at it. Shadow Wolf, thanks for the answer so far. I want to ask a very basic question. Can you explain what trance is for someone who's unfamiliar with the meaning of it? Trance, as we play with it in hypnosis, is a combination of 2 characteristics. It's a combination of absorption in the state, process, or experience, combined with a continually narrowing focus of attention. To the degree that you have those things, you have what classically trained hypnotists call depth of trance. The only other aspect I would add to that is each of those states of absorption and focus will cut you off from certain resources while giving you access to others. The only variation being focus, absorption, and direction. So that's basically what trance is. Human beings are never not in trance. They're always exhibiting some level of absorption and focus in what they're doing. To the degree that you've maximized that, you have a very, very deep of trance. Susan says David is unsupervisable. I am genetically unemployable. I have such a high level fuck you factor, it's not even funny. I just, we talk about compliance. I am your classic reactant motherfucker. And combine that with the fact that a lot of times what I come up with tends to work better and faster and with less bullshit than the stuff I'm being taught. I'm kind of incorrigible that way. So take that for what it's worth. Douglas Dallas says, David, thank you for the be water approach. Seafood Bruce really didn't care where it came from. He cared about what worked. I'm impressed at your curiosity. Voted for you, by the way, #1. Thank you, Douglas. I appreciate that. Let's change the world one mind at a time, together, right? Okay, let's see here. Okay, there's a conversation going on between Seth and Laura that I won't get into. Let's see. VB asks, how do you have a great conversation with someone? Do any of my students want to shout out a 1-word answer to that question? Just go ahead and type it in the chat, because I know there's people chomping at the bit to answer that question for VB. Right? Brandolyn asks, can you go over image cycling? I can, but I think the best, Seth, do we have any videos available publicly on image cycling? Type that in the chat. If not, I'll give you a brief synopsis of it. My video key looks great tonight. Cool. I have a new webcam, by the way. And I'm playing with different camera views. I can actually, I have a software now that I can actually use to kind of change where I'm at. So I kind of think it kind of works out for me that way. So, I mean, I'm not all high tech yet, but I'm kind of getting there. Hold on a second. Screwed up all my windows. All right. Let's see here. Agreed with the fire people opinion. I'm a fire person. So there we have it. Independent corroboration. Right on. Blame says curiosity. Echo. See, oh, here it comes. Here's your answer, VB. Echo, echo, curiosity, rapport. Echo, echo, echo. Bingo. Echo technique is the fastest way to create powerful, ridiculously interesting conversations without having to say a whole lot yourself, right? There is a little bit of a mindset that goes along with it, but at the end of the day, Echo technique is the fastest, most efficient way to give the people the kind of conversational experience they've been dying to have without having to do a whole lot original to get it. Okay. SD says, are there times when you spend and you put back in that doesn't feel quite right? So take it out. And, yes, take something out, spin it, put it back in. Doesn't feel right, take it out. Keep playing with it until it feels right. Spin it, put it back in, hold until it sets. You're done. There's nothing that the neurology creates that you can't change. And if you can change it once, you can change it again. You're never stuck. And that's both the beauty and the curse, the blessing and the curse of our neurology, right? We must be responsible for monitoring what our neurology is doing and making sure it's appropriate and getting us moving us in the direction that we want to go. It's natural for us to just kind of go into the drone zone and not monitor ourselves, not engage in these cognitive surveys, these cognitive audits, so to speak, and just let things run on autopilot. And you can drone through the life that way, but it doesn't really optimize you for life on your terms. So I think it's worthwhile. I don't know if it was Hippocrates or Socrates or Plato, and correct me if you know the answer and I don't, who once said the unexamined life isn't worth living. I think the unexamined thoughts and beliefs that we have move us to our less than ideal life. And I think part of our responsibility as self-evolving beings is to be able to evaluate the qualities of our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs, and to make an intelligent and educated decision. Is this moving us towards the life we want, or isn't it? And then having the ability to change it, right? So the first thing starts with awareness. And then, of course, the hard part is maintaining that awareness without going back to sleep, right? And most of you in Planet David, you're kind of on that path. You didn't come here by accident. It wasn't just a random Google algorithm, right? The Spirit brought you here on your golden path at whatever level you're ready to embark on it, right? And part of that is upping your awareness and your consciousness and not going back to sleep, taking control of your life in an educated and intelligent way. Okay. I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. Robert Ramos also, lots of people echoing out there. That's nice to see. Boris says Socrates said that. Thank you. Brandolyn says, thank you, Laura. My edge no longer flickers. It's easier to watch. Good to know. Meg Nowicki says, how do I deal with debilitating anxiety? Point to where you feel it, reach out and touch it. Magic frame, color breathing, spinning, right? Reference instant emergency pain relief for those techniques, or how to cure emotional pain in 7 minutes or less. You'll find some very powerful techniques for doing exactly that, okay? Cynthia says, I look a whole lot better on the current cam. Well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's see here. Trance, Shadow Wolf says, trance sounds a lot like a shift in abstraction layer, absorption as we call it in computing. Would that be more accurate? They are forms of trance. They are forms of trance. Everything human beings do is trance. We're never not in trance. The question becomes, is the trance we're in useful for getting the outcomes we want, or isn't it? Right? And that's kind of what it kind of goes back to what I was saying about examining your thoughts and feelings and beliefs. These are all trances. Trances within trances, so to speak. And we get to choose once we become aware of what to do with them. So the Flame says that, David, I've used your techniques with great success for creating powerful conversations by focusing on the words that reveal the deepest values. Bingo. Absolutely 100% true. Cannot agree more. Shadow Wolf says, I've noticed that to focus on something new, we need to unfocus first, meaning we move from a high vagueness to then jump back into specifying details or data stream that we wish to explore. Okay, that's a statement, not a question. KW says, I'm happy for my spirit to bring me to your world. I'm happy for you to be here, KW. Harold Davis, mind control skills, law of attraction, image cycling made easy, still on YouTube. Boom, thank you, Harold. Benjamin, part 1. Oh boy, here we go. All right. Hey, David, I have been practicing state control for a few weeks total. I've experienced my states manifest increasingly cool situations, but I've been finding myself sometimes zoning out. Yes. Sometimes you will become so absorbed in a process, your critical faculty will go right out the fucking window, right? And that's okay. We all go through that. Just bring your mind back. Change your posture, change your breathing, bring your conscious mind back, and pick up where you left off or start the process again. Okay. The flame, when people reveal their values through their words, that has allowed me to direct conversations in a powerful way that is enjoyable. Bingo, absolutely. When people get to talk about their emotional bonding checklist, as we call it, they go into profound pleasure states. They go into profound emotional connection with the person they're talking to. It's the most gratifying conversations they'll ever have. And it's a gift that you can give to people. And once you've given them that gift, they will move heaven and earth to keep it. They will not want to give you up. Shadow Wolf says, thanks, understood. Tyler Wren says, are there just 7 laws of the universe? That's a really good question. I wish I could give you a definitive answer. There are 7 functional laws to the universe. And I think those are good enough. I think what you will find as you meditate and go deeper into your alchemical work, that there are other principles, or the laws get simpler yet more global in terms of what they connect with. And so at the end of the day, 7 is what we have functionally that we know of. Are there more? Probably. But I don't think we're at the level of consciousness just yet that those make a difference for us. As we change consciousnesses, I think the rules we have access to and our ability to work with them will change significantly as well. Val Brooks says, hello. Hello, Val. Liam asks, can you direct me to resources for sounds of elements? You bring it up in vibration influence, would love to study more. Probably the simplest one to start with is 6 Healing Sounds Qigong. That's probably the most accessible. It's probably the safest for you to work with in terms of bodily health. But it'll also give you kind of a bridge into this whole sound energetic body system. Right? Bar. If we are not in trance always, where does the bigger picture as far as the multiverse enter? I'm okay in the womb and continue to be careful. Okay. I don't think we're not, no, well, Kabar, first of all, I think we're always in trance. So that kind of neutralizes the statement a little bit. In terms of trance, I want you to think of trance as layers of consciousness. Our consciousness can expand or contract. It can become infinitely large or infinitely small. It can raise itself infinitely in vibration. It can lower itself infinitely in vibration. So in terms of the multiverse, you are the multiverse. The multiverse is you. It's just a question of, has the field that is your beingness, for I hate to use vague words like that, collapsed to form a point of attention in you. And that's where your consciousness is at any given moment. So you can expand your consciousness to be the universe, or you can condense or, condense really, I guess, or concentrate your vibration to a different level and be infinitely small, right? So I think, and that would be an analog to what NLP would say, chunking up, moving to abstraction, to concrete. So I hope that kind of answers your question. Otherwise, re-ask the question and I'll see if I can give you a better answer. EBR1000F fan says, how do I get my 16-year-old daughter to accept my help? Start with echo technique, criterion values, resistance removal formula. There's a video on our YouTube channel here called Dealing with Resistance. Watch that video, apply what's in that video to the relationship with your daughter using the echo technique. And if you can do the emotional bonding checklist, I think that will help you a lot. Okay. Let's see here. By the way, for anybody who's on the call with us today, if you have experience for CBR, let me go back. If you have any experience working with your children, I know some of you have, that's why I'm asking, using these techniques with your children, could you please share your experiences either privately or in the chat with CBR and let her know that these things are powerful and effective and actually pretty user-friendly. Mira the Greyhound, hello, so happy to see you on live. What a treat, thank you. Good to be here. AO says, let your daughter grow herself. Okay. D. Shro says, have you ever done any past life regression? Yes, I have, many times. Dogon 23 says, 7 hermetic laws. Terry says, good evening, y'all. Kathleen says, hello. John Pachkowski is back with, Is there a difference of the information in learning face reading between the book and taking your classes? Yes, worlds of difference. I love Lillian. I will always love her. Um, when I have two versions of face reading that I teach now. I have the classical version that I learned from Lillian, and then what I did was I took her book, her textbook, and I sorted through it, and I reorganized the information into a system geared more towards how I teach my students and more towards the Western mind, more towards people who don't have a background in Chinese medicine, don't understand the concepts, don't understand the terminology, but can look at face reading as a way of understanding behavior, character, and temperament. So the short answer is yes, there is a world of difference between the book and what I teach. I teach both classical systems as well as my version of a more modern, updated approach that focuses on behavior, character, and temperament. So the short answer, yes, there is a difference. But is the book useful? 100%. It's still required reading for all of my face reading students or therapists for that matter, whether you have a classical orientation or the more of a behavioral approach that I like to take. That is the source book. She is my teacher. She is my lineage. And so I really kind of demand that you are familiar with her work. And there's so much information in her textbook, stuff I haven't even scratched the surface of yet. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Let's see here. You know what? I'm at the risk of leaving some people out. I'm going to click the magic arrow button and see how far down I have to go. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, we're not too bad. Or maybe we are. Oh, okay. And you'll know the difference between when people virtue signal versus them naturally expressing genuine traits of character with the skills David teaches. Thank you, Flame. Will, hey, Will, good to see you, brother. Basketball fan. I believe singing bowls has healed my neck, nerve pain, but I am open to it. Okay. Shadow Wolf. So we are in some sense always in a flow in relation to something, right? I always wondered how to be in flow in a sport or game, still interested in doing so more on demand. If you can recall flow states and reactivate them using the drug of choice technique or the color breathing technique, you're gonna get into it faster. Here's one piece of advice that I can give you. When you access the flow state, don't try to evaluate how deep of the state you're in. That will actually kick you out of it. Remember, flow states are states of absorption and focus, right? So if there's a part of you standing on the outside trying to evaluate how deep you are in it, that's the part that's keeping you out. Okay. So Kabar says, thank you. You are very welcome. Basketball fan says, Temple sounds great channel, Tibetan singing bowls. Okay. Mira the Greyhound says, you are so smart. Is that for me? Cynthia says, David, how do I make my energy bigger and smaller, either to be better noticed or to be less noticed? Breathing in and condensing breathing is a way to build your energy. Recovery breathing is a way to eject excess energy. Imagining your energy field to be larger and bigger and brighter will rapidly increase the size of your energy field. Okay. Mira the Greyhound says, woohoo! Liam, you said 6 healing sounds, correct? Yes, I did. Lady Tina Letter says, will you be opening up one-on-one? We are technically open right now. It's just expensive and hard to get an appointment. But if you call Stephanie at 858-282-4663, we'll be happy to see what we can do for you. Carrie Pasco, what's up, friends? And let's see. MCAN, can you please explain the difference between CPI and killer influence? The descriptions are very similar, if not the same, and I want to understand the difference. Yeah, absolutely. So we have 4 CPI courses: CPI 1, 2, 3, and 4. CPI 1 and all the CPI courses focus specifically on linguistics, different aspects of linguistics. So CPI 1 will teach you what we call the Universal Persuasion Protocol, the 6 stages universal persuasion formula that allows you to influence people and get them to do what you want, anytime, anywhere, under any situation, under any circumstance, using your language. From the boardroom to the bar room to the treatment room to the networking room to the bedroom. It's the same 6 steps, but it's focused on the linguistic model that we embrace. Stood the test of time. It beats out everything hands down. Killer influence focuses on the study of hypnotic operators, one of which is language. So because language is the thread that knits all the other forms of influence together, both systems will teach you that. The difference is that once you learn the UPP, the Universal Persuasion Protocol, killer influence is going to take you into the study of nonverbal hypnotic operators, phenomena that have the ability to psychologically position yourself or redirect a person's focus of attention or critical faculty to influence them in ways that don't require language. So we'll talk about spatial hypnotic operators, how to use the spatial relationships between you and other people, between you and things, to psychologically cause people to be more suggestible to you, how to have more authority and create more suggestibility in humans just by where you sit or stand in relation to them. We'll talk about social hypnotic operators. These are subliminal behavioral mechanisms that when you do certain things, society has programmed you to respond in predictable ways. We'll teach you how to leverage them, how to recognize them, how to engineer them. We'll talk about lie detection and cold reading, how to read people's body language so that you can tell if they're most likely lying to you, how to look at somebody's mode of dress, their physiology, their way of expressing themselves, and make generalizations about them. Now, why do we want to do this? Because in order to influence somebody more effectively, we need to crawl inside of them in a manner of speaking and understand them. The art of cold reading allows you to make very powerful, very rapid assumptions about people, generalizations that you can now deliver in the form of verbal content that causes people to cede a certain degree of authority over them to you. The principle that this works on is that anytime people appear to have knowledge about us or about the way we think and feel that we didn't tell them, we automatically tend to view them as authority figures in our world. And authority is the ultimate hypnotic operator. It doesn't, most of the hypnotic operators that people rely on require some level of rapport. Authority does not. Authority is the one hypnotic operator that if you have enough of it, you can just cause people to just willy-nilly comply to whatever you want without rapport. If you have rapport and authority, now you have a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. So we're going to teach you about the 4 pillars of irresistible hypnotic influence: authority, attractivity, affinity, and acquiescence. These are 4 major categories of influence that when you employ them strategically, people become irresistibly suggestible to you in more cases than not. But a lot of it is done through nonverbal means: how you dress, how you carry yourself, the tactics you use, the spatial orientations, the social hypnotic operators, the environments, the contexts, and the frames that you create that cause them to have certain body feelings. None of this is specifically verbal. So if you look at CPI versus killer influence, CPI is going to deepen your study of language. So you'll first learn the UPP, the Universal Persuasion Protocol. Then you'll study the power of strategic storytelling and metaphor, how to use stories for connecting, why storytelling and metaphor is the most powerful form of human influence that exists, stories that are designed for leadership, sales, and marketing, stories that remove resistance to persuasion, that change people's attitudes and beliefs in the background, and then finally ninja stories, how to use stories as a delivery mechanism for advanced hypnotic persuasion techniques, things like semantic priming, visceral priming, analog marking, embedded commands, thought binds, all of these different neuro-linguistic type tactics that high-level speakers use all the time and use stories as a way to prime you to think and feel along certain lines. That's the whole CPI level 2 model, where you learn how to just construct these irresistible stories that suck people in and cause people to just believe what you say and do what you want. It also includes a deconstruction of how high-level speakers, like guys like T. Harv Eker or Mark Victor Hansen or Lisa Sasevich, create and engineer talks that have people rushing to the back of the room to buy their product or service. So you get that whole treatment in CPI level 2, which is all about storytelling and metaphor. You'll learn about, in CPI 3, you'll learn about what we call conversational belief change and overcoming objections. This is the ability to take a frame that somebody said or a belief that somebody's espoused and have 14 different ways to change and rearrange that belief system instantly to seek them up, to get them over to your way of thinking. So if you're, if you're the target of narcissists and social predators or people who are very manipulative, these are 14 different strategies that you can use instantly to derail that conversation, win that argument, and change belief systems in yourself and others for the better. Very, very powerful, and lots of different ways to use it, but it's all based on linguistics again. And then, of course, the final leg on the CPI table is CPI-4, which is all about hypnotic presentation skills. It's the ability to use your language skills from the stage to install the desire to learn more, to install skill sets in people. It's not a course on stage hypnosis so much as it's a course about hypnotic skills from the stage. Guys like Tony Robbins and Mark Victor Hansen, T. Harv Eker, Joel Bauman, people of that who make their livings putting information into people's heads, priming people to behave a certain way from the stage. We're going to show you step by step how that's created and how to use all the techniques that you've learned in the previous CPIs to build your business and utilize that content and leverage it to be successful. So hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of a different understanding of what CPI is versus what Killer Influence is. And we have a new version of Killer Influence that we just put out called Killer Intelligence, which is all about speed profiling and defense against the dark arts, which is more on the behavioral profiling and profiling, basically, body language and self-defense against people. But again, it focuses more on the non-verbal applications, and then supplements it with the verbal stuff. So that's our Killer Influence funnel, and that's our CPI funnel. Hopefully that kind of gives you some insight. Harry asked, any experience with ADD? A little bit. Let's see here. Heather says, I've used this with my kids, brought a 14-year-old to Killer Influence. He is a force to be reckoned with now. I remember him. Let's see, Dash, or D-A-S-H. David, how to get out of chronic fatigue or digestive problems like gluten sensitivity that cause fatigue? I've been trying many of your techniques already. Look at your diet. Chances are, if you haven't addressed, and again, it could be that you need more of the regression style techniques. One of the things that we see a lot of times is if there's more complicated issue at work or a group of issues working together to create that sensitivity, regression is usually a more efficient tool than spinning or magic framing by itself. So that would be my next thing. I would definitely do a food journal and make sure that there's no hidden pathogens in your diet. And then I would unpack the emotional reasons why you have that sensitivity. It could be generational. It could be from this lifetime. It could be just a biochemical thing that you need to address on a DNA level. Okay, so John Pichowski, hold on a second. John, do people who do the cybersecurity for your website get the courses for free? No. Okay, let's see here. Benjamin Grateful says, part 2. I zone out in conversation with people and it seems this feeling comes up. My brain drops out and my body puckers up. I was going to ask a question, but let me change my state. I can't remember. Okay. John Pikowski says, will Spycraft ever be available as a standalone purchase? Yes. It is currently in post-production right now. I don't have an ETA on when the course itself will be available, but we have every intention of releasing it as a product that people can have. Omila Tropical, hope I got that right. If I stack a lot of presuppositions, do you think it would even work if I have a negative rapport with somebody? That's a good question. I think a more appropriate question would be, if you have negative rapport with somebody, would they even listen to what you're saying? Based on my studies in CPI, even if you have negative rapport with somebody, a certain level of presuppositions, if they can hear them, will have an effect. The question becomes, will they do the behavior? Will they engage in the behavior or thought process that those presuppositions are priming them to do if you have negative rapport? And the question, and the truth is, I don't know. I would say it's about 50-50. One thing I tell people more often than not is the only way to really beat these language patterns is to have an outcome that is diametrically opposed to what you're being asked or primed to do, and irrationally hold on to it, or B, leave the room. Somebody in a state of negative rapport is more likely to leave the room or tell you to go fuck yourself. So, again, I think a lot of it will go down to the level of authority that you have in their world. The higher the level of authority, the less rapport actually matters. But remember also that the more angry or the more emotional somebody gets, the more suggestible they become. So again, there's a lot of, I would say it's a good 50-50 based on what I know. Benjamin Grateful. Other than that, I've stepped into the commander state and I've ordered disobedient dogs to follow me after stepping into the state, and it's really cool. Yeah, and it only gets better. One of the reasons that you won't see a lot of state control stuff on our YouTube channel is because it's kind of like our secret sauce. We have a very specific way that we train state control, and it just keeps getting stronger. And the longer you do it, the more powerful you get. So this is kind of one of our little hidden gems that if you come to a live event, you'll get a deep dive into it. You'll get indoctrinated into it. You'll be able to do it and blow your own mind with it. But what we give on our YouTube channel for free is better than what most people charge for. So take it, prove yourself to it. When you're ready to come to a live event, we'll give you the whole shebang, right? Dogon23 says, what are the thought bind? A thought bind is a verbal structure that creates an illusion of choice. So for example, whether you believe what I say or simply understand what I'm talking about, you can begin to understand how binds actually work, right? And so if you go back and you parse that language, whether you believe what I say or simply understand what I'm talking about, implies the same thing, right? It sounds like two very different processes. And that's what we call a double bind, by the way. Where to my outcome. So that's called a double bind. A single bind is the more you X, the more you Y. So the more you continue to think about how binds work, the more you'll understand that it locks in a certain mode of thinking that was delivered by the speaker. Okay? So that's thought binding, right? You connect a thought or an illusion of choice to something. Jill Button says, I don't know how, but I just landed here, never heard about anything you're talking about. I need this. How do I find your courses? Well, I'm glad you asked, Jill. It's almost like I invited you in psychically. If you go to www.davidsnyder.nlp.com, we have a whole buttload of free video content. We have very topic-specific pages, as well as a very, very well-stocked store. If you have questions about, if you tell me more about what you want to learn, I can recommend the least number of products to test or shop to get you from where you are to where you want to be. It's kind of a service that we offer because it's very easy to get lost in all the products that we create because we're constantly researching, creating new versions, researching what works better, putting things together in new ways. Because we're all about problem solving, about getting the life you want the way that you want it. So tell me what you want to learn. I'll tell you what courses to take, and then you can decide, how much resource you want to invest in getting that done. I think the Pokemon Alakazam uses that. Oh, Matt just popped in. Matt Johnson says, hey, David, student and big fan. What is the best way to handle adverse reactions under hypnosis, i.e. when running into a traumatic memory? Is there a book or course that teaches this? Okay, Matt, are you specifically talking about abreactions or something else? If you can elaborate a little bit, maybe I can give you a better answer. Let's see here. Basketball fans, how fast do you see through narcissists? Pretty fast. In fact, I just did a whole class on how to do exactly that. It's called Killer Intelligence. We're probably going to call the product speed profiling, but it's defense against the dark arts. And there was a big focus on social predators, starting with narcissists, Machiavellians, sociopaths, and then ultimately the more malevolent ones like con artists and human traffickers and child molesters and things like that. So There are certain tells that these people have. Camila says, thank you, David. Dogon23, what are your takeaways from Spycraft in Florida with Chase Hughes? I was there and it was amazing. What were my takeaways? Oh my God, there were so many. You know, Chase is such a fountain of information and he brings such a strong yin and yang kind of an energy. In other words, like I have one, like one of us is yin, one of us is yang. And together, but that, you know, on their own, they're extraordinarily powerful. When you bring them together, you get a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. And so I think what came away from with Chase was just this opportunity to take some things that are really, really good and make them just absolutely supernatural or superhuman in terms of understanding influence, understanding humans. But I think the other thing that came out of it that was really amazing was the bonding that everybody had, the community that came out of that. Kind of like everybody there suddenly realized that, hey, we have access to something that most people will never understand, and we can use it. It's kind of like our superpower now. And because, you know, Chase has been wanting to do a lot more live events for a while. And I think he got in, I think he was a little, and again, I can only speculate on this. I think he was a little frustrated in understanding how that worked. And I think what came out of it for him and me was this realization that what we had suspected was a powerful synergy was actually real, and that the world needed this information. We needed this information from each other. And there was a whole that's greater than the sum of the parts. And I think what you're going to see going forward, based on his feedback, is a lot more of these events. We may do, you know, now that we know that Spycraft is a thing, and it delivers what we hoped it would, actually delivered more than we hoped it would. We may do this 2 or 3 times a year in different parts of the world. Going beyond just the initial one, which was test of concept. But the you know, there's a bunch of practice groups. You know, there's a defense against the dark arts group now. There's a Spycraft group now they're meeting in private and going over materials and practicing and training together. And so these are the people that are going to go out into the world and affect massive change, protect others, and help people get the results they want. So to me, seeing the lights go on and the passion and the enthusiasm and the skill sets was really what was amazing for me. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that evolves over time. And I want more of you to be there. You know, we capped it at 55 people, and we could have put 155 in there easily, but we decided we were going to focus on a small group and make sure that everybody got what they needed. So hopefully that answers your question without my long rambling dissertation. So hold on a second. Strutting Birds asks, would you advise someone in sobriety go out to bars to solo practice socializing? No. For one very good reason. There's an old saying, locked doors keep honest people honest. You can resist anything but temptation. You know, now, if you are stable in your sobriety and being in a bar doesn't negatively impact you or motivate you to want to take a drink, then it's worth testing. But if the people you want to meet don't hang out in bars, you shouldn't go there. And if the people you do want to meet do hang out in bars, it might be a good question to ask, are these the people that I want to be associated with? Are these the people that are going to help me stay sober or not? And we talked about this in Defense Against the Dark Arts, which we just finished last week in Vegas. When you start becoming aware of personalities and tendencies and things of that nature, you need to understand that the people you associate with will dramatically influence your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. You know, there's an old saying, tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are, right? We really drove it home that the people you surround yourself with will need to add value to your life. If they're moving your life in the direction that you value, then they deserve to be in your life. If they're not adding value, if they're moving you away from the life you want to have, then you need to remove those people. You need to find a way to separate yourself appropriately from those people, because they will only pull you back to a life that you don't want. So again, it's, it's never a direct cut and dry kind of an answer. I don't know what your strength of character is, what your level of sobriety is. I don't know what your history is. I don't know how suggestible you are to friends and family who are in that environment. But my gut instinct says, find a better place. Find a better place, right? There are lots of places that don't involve alcohol or other substances that you can go and socialize. But if you like bars, if you like that ambiance, you like that energy, and you can maintain your sobriety, then give it a shot, test it, right? Be kind to yourself if things don't quite work out the way you plan. Okay. Cosmic Ascent says, yay, you're still online. That's very true, very awesome. Or you're awesome, thank you. Cosmic Ascent says, how can we use NLP to make this world a better place and bring people together to work on tough social issues? Like, can it be used to make people excited about that? Absolutely, 100%. DH Dave says, he's on a private channel here. Hold on a second. Yeah, ab reactions. Classically trained hypnotists are taught a phrase that when an ab reaction rears its ugly head, you're supposed to use. And the scene fades and you tend to your breathing. If you're a graduate of Identity by Design, you have a much different reaction when people go into ab reactions. We actually salivate and we get excited because it's the shortest route to the most direct route to the problem. So I think how you handle ab reactions. Okay, so Matt says, got a client with traumatic memories, want to do some timeline. She's had bad reactions in the past. Okay, so I don't know what your skill set is, so I'm going to throw some things out here that may or may not resonate. First of all, you need to set up safety resources ahead of time. You need to set up dissociation anchors. If you're going to use timeline, you definitely better have dissociation anchors in place so that you can distance her from the emotional amplitude of the experience. I personally would explore the ab reaction, but I have a different skill set than most. Most of my students would just point to where you feel it and spin it. But again, I'm going to err on the side of caution here and say, if they're having ab reactions, create dissociation, but do it before you reach the event so that they can comfortably manage the experience as they go through the reprocessing experience, and more of that emotional energy is vented. Reduce the layers of dissociation. You may need to stack 4, 5, 6 levels of dissociation to that client so she can effectively run through the processes without being overloaded or overwhelmed by the emotion. And then just peel back those layers of dissociation as she can competently go through the process without losing control. If you know color breathing and you know the safe place induction, I would definitely establish that ahead of time. I'm going to assume you don't. If I'm wrong, then all the better. Right? So hopefully that helps. Mirror the Greyhound, good question, Matt Johnson. Alexis Roby, what is your schedule for next year? I'm determined to get to my first live event with you next year. Tell you what, for those of you, see here, for those of you who want a copy of my schedule, maybe what I can do is if you sign up for my email list or something, I can post a PDF of the calendar, because I don't know that I can, for some reason, my event calendar on my website is only showing up through January, but we have it through most of 2022 already set up. So if people want a copy of that, I will happily send a PDF. Cosmic Ascent says, damn, I get no loves. I love you, it's okay. Cosmic, here's your question. Do you have any products oriented towards community engagement and leading community development? The closest thing I would have in terms of that would be a combination of things. A, killer influence, and B, CPI level 4. See, those two courses would have the most community orientation of all the classes that I'm teaching. They would give you probably the biggest bang for your buck. I also have a course on NLP for profit, which is all about using these skills for copywriting. DH Dave says, nightmares, hi every night. It's a really shitty thing that is happening to someone. I mean, it is. Regress to cause. Fastest way to get rid of nightmares would be regress to cause and just process the experiences that those nightmares are trying to help you deal with. Oh, and here's to finish Matt's question. I would get identity by design first, and then I would get real world trauma resolution second. Those two courses will give you pretty much everything you need to deal with any abreaction that comes up. Okay. Mirror the Grand says, nothing but love here for Cosmic Ascent. Okay, basketball fan. I get targeted by nasty people. I'm too nice. It's so hard. How do you stay open to nice people yet protect yourself? 2 words. Well, actually, long time. Defense against the dark arts. We actually, it's funny, in the 3-day class we just taught, where we're teaching you how to deal with these people, we actually help you practice being an asshole. Because sometimes that's what you need to do. There's actually like 30 different defense tactics or aggressive tactics that social predators use. We actually have people role-playing them so you know how to use them and punch holes in them. So that course there is a version of it available, I think, on either on David Snyder NLP or NLPpower.com. It is not the most recent version, but I think it's there. But the newer version should be available in a couple of months. So I would definitely look into that. For those of you who are platinum members, there was an AMA that we did, actually 2 AMAs, I think, about a year ago that we did, where we taught defense against the dark arts. We taught how to deal with these people, how to spot lies and things of that nature. So if you are a platinum member of our YouTube channel, you should be able to access those recordings and take some good notes, okay? Jill Button says, thank you. I attract the wrong people, so I want to stop that. And my dad dislikes me due to my sister's influence. He thinks I'm someone that I'm not. How do I show him otherwise? I would start with I would start with CPI 1, Killer Influence. I would look at Defense Against the Dark Arts. I would look at, go to our YouTube channel and find the resistance removal formula. And I would apply all of those as well as reframing. Because I think what you need to do is you need to extract your father's core values, what his emotional bonding checklist is, and link those qualities to yourself in a way that he recognizes that you're getting it. I think if you can do that effectively, you can start to change the frame that your sisters have put you in with regard to how your father sees you. Right? And remember, once you extract that emotional bonding checklist, you got to actually embody those traits. So you got to be that person, right? So you need to make a decision if that's worth your time to do that or not. Okay. So Laura has asked, I have to ask, is that the real bookshelf or is that still the picture? Believe it or not, it's still the picture. Okay. All right. We're coming on to, we've been on for a long time now, going on 2 hours, I think. You guys having fun with this? Let's see here. Mira's asking, oh, that's for basketball fan. Kabar, what are the dark art motives and why are they simple parasites? Why are they simple parasites? Well, that's the whole point. They are parasites. They're predators. Parasites and predators. Most of your highly accomplished social predators live parasitical lifestyles, right? They move from victim to victim, right? And they leave destroyed lives and husks behind them. And they're simple parasites because they believe that their reptile brain is in full control. They believe what's theirs is theirs and what's yours is theirs. And that if you're not strong enough or smart enough to stop them, you deserve what you get. These are antisocial personalities. They're at war with the status quo. They understand what is right and wrong. They just don't care. They don't agree with it. And so they will do whatever they want to do and press whatever buttons and say whatever they need to say to pull it off. Benjamin Grateful. How can I understand honest unconscious movements and twitches in conversation or my daily life, whether unconscious message or just a muscle spasm? How can I figure out what it means if sign or communication? Well, you can always ask yourself, what could this mean? And go with your first impression. It's probably the best, cleanest way to do it. Sometimes a muscle spasm is just a muscle spasm, but I don't believe there's such a thing as a random thought, right? So if a muscle twitches and your first intuition is that there's a meaning to it, ask and take the first response that comes up. That's usually the right one, however illogical or non-linear it may be. Any chance you'll do any more live events in the Washington, D.C. area? Probably not. My staff has developed an allergy to the Washington, D.C. area. And so they've decided to migrate to places that are easy to get to and are much warmer most of the year. So you will probably see a strong bias towards California, Las Vegas, Orlando, and maybe Texas. We might do something in New York, but that's been mostly the talk stages for now. Right now, our hubs are primarily going to be Vegas and Orlando. It's really not cost effective to do events in California, but the weather is nicer. So that would be a third choice. So Tyrus is saying, hey, David, when I was younger, I got a nose job, removed bone. Now I know it is gene related. So until I get a stem cell therapy, what's the fastest way you would suggest that I continue dealing with it? Well, the first thing I would ask is how did changing the bony structure of your nose affect your life? Did it cause you did it make your life better or worse? If it made your life better, there really isn't anything you need to do. If you felt like you lost something as a result, then look at other areas of your face or body that you can build up to compensate for that loss of bone, right? The Chinese tell us that it's really not practical or functionally possible in many cases to make more jing. So stem cell might allow you to do that. I have a strong belief that it might. And certainly I utilize intravenous stem cells to keep my organs healthy, right? But it's really not cost. I mean, it's expensive as shit, to be honest. So again, evaluate what you lost versus what you got in return. Sometimes it's not. Think of it more as an investment rather than a loss, right? And make the decisions what to do about it based on that. I guess other ways you could do it would be to spend more time engaging consciously in those behaviors. You may notice as you begin to spend more time doing the behaviors connected to the jing that you lost, you may notice remodeling of that area. You may notice your nose starting to get more big, more prominent in some way. You may start to see that bulge coming back. One of the things we know from face reading is that the minute you reprocess an emotion, those facial structures, those facial architectures change. And so, who am I to say? But again, ideally, you would have to identify the characteristics that were modified and then actively re-engage in them so that you can build that up. And I think that is possible. Lady Tina Letter says, I find it nearly impossible to tell white lies. Is there any way to get around this? No. Because most deception of any kind is hard to tell if it's A, there's not a lot of emotional investment, and B, they've had time to prepare, right? Most deception cues are not, there is no single trait that indicates deception. There's only clusters of traits that indicate a higher probability of deception. And so the first thing I would recommend is that you go and you pick up Chase Hughes' 6-Minute X-Ray. Great book. Teaches you how to speed profile people. And then use that as a foundation. And then look at his behavioral table of the elements, which is all about understanding behavior in both context and environment and probability of deception. Usually white lies are, unless you've got somebody backed in a corner, they're not going to have a high level of stress connected to them. So they're kind of, unless they're just blatantly untrue and you can prove it right then and there, they're going to be harder to detect because there's not a lot of emotional investment in them. They're usually social niceties, which we've gotten really good at delivering, somewhat congruently, right? So that would be the best advice I can give you. We have a video called How to Catch Liars. It's on the 15 most useful traits that liars share. But again, there is no single cue that indicates deception. Christine says, I appreciate and grateful for your time. Glad you're here, Christine. 13 King Style says, David, is there a way for you to heal my sickness due to negative trauma? Also, may I learn Oriental medicine and hypnosis from you? Well, yes and yes. You'll have to call my office and set up an appointment. We'll do a consultation. And then if things work out, then we'll move forward towards getting you the help that you need. If I can't do it, I can always recommend you to one of my associates who I trust. So the short answer is yes, you can do those things. Question is, do you have the resources to do those things, right? So let's find out. Give us a call at 858-282-4663. Leave a message for Stephanie and she will tell you how to proceed. Kabar. If one has been programmed to be kind and violence isn't an answer to discord and found themselves in a land of parasites, where to begin? Ironically, understanding the behaviors of the people you're seeking to defend yourself against and learning how to be that way is probably going to give you the greatest range of ability to respond. To use a knife fighting metaphor, when I was first learning how to use a knife, I think I learned this actually from Paul Vunak, who's one of my JKD idols. He would say, in order to defend yourself against someone with a knife, you need to know how to use a knife. If you want to act, appropriately and effectively defend yourself against people who are parasites by nature, you need to know how to be a parasite. You need to know how they think, how they act, what their tactics are. You need to know how to predict and become aware of those tactics, how to use them, so you know how to defend them and defeat them. And that's what Defense Against the Dark Arts was really about. It was, a lot of role play. A lot of it was lecture, but a lot of it was just, hey, this is the drill. This is how you need to be. This is what you're up against. Role play it and notice how it plays out. Now use these tactics and see what happens. And I think that's where you have to start. You need to understand that the people who are engaging in these lifestyles don't think like you do, but they understand how you think, probably better than you do, and they have no problem pushing those buttons. And until you can level that playing field, you don't have a clue as to how to protect yourself, short of just barricading yourself in a room and never talking to anyone, which is a prison in and of itself. KR says, I recently developed TMJ and ringing in the ear. I tried to spin it, did not work. What else can I do? I also noticed I grind my teeth. What method would you use? Regress the cause. Bar none. Get with a qualified regression therapist, regress the cause, sort that shit out. Okay. I wouldn't even talk about magic framing or color or spinning right now. I would regress the cause either through the vibrational things that we do or through classical regression. Shannon Herman, I think a South Sea Island hunter is trying hard to pursue me. Okay, there's not a question there, so I don't know if that's a good thing. So, wow. Okay, CBR1. David says, thank you so much for your help and sharing your wisdom. May God bless you and your family. Thank you, CBR. I hope everything we share with you helps and works. And if you have any other questions, just reach out. If we're here and we can help, we will. Okay. 13 King Style says, thank you so much, Dr. David. My pleasure. Mira the Greyhound is laughing her ass off. All right. David, I can't stop eating. I need to lose weight. Me too. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Well, that looks like everybody. So you know what? I think now would be a good time, in the immortal words of Carol Burnett, to thank you all for spending your Friday night with me. It's been an amazing, amazing experience. And To quote the late great, I don't know, is Carol Burnett still alive? I think she is. It would be a tragedy if we lost her. I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, my friends. God bless. If you're asking questions as I'm signing off, type them in the comments section when this video goes live. I will circle back and I will answer those questions for you. I love you all. For those of you who are in my platinum or diamond, who are in my diamond club, our mastermind session is tomorrow. For those of you who want to be part of the mastermind club, it's $97 and you can participate in our hands-on mentoring session. Starts tomorrow, 11 a.m. All you gotta do is go to the community channel, join us at the diamond level, and you get access to 10 years of archive video and hands-on training. We'll see you tomorrow if you're part of that club.